Welcome to the Dog Trainers Podcast,
a podcast created by dog trainers for dog trainers or anyone who's ever fallen in love with man's best friend.
Hey everybody, welcome back and thank you so much for listening to the Dog Trainers Podcast. Mariano Alvarez here with Brent Labrada, and a special guest we'll be announcing in just a second. But first, as always, we want to give a huge thank you to our listeners. We love you guys. We appreciate you guys. Thanks so much for being with us. Second, we really want you guys to check out Art of Teaching 2.0. It's going to be me, Brent, and none other than Tyler Muto. It's going to take place in Buffalo, New York in late April next year. More details, more info on that in the description. But for now, I'm going to kick it over to Brent and introduce our very next guest. Over to you, man.
What's up, everybody? Yes, we have a great interview lined up for you guys. We've got to know this guy on social media over the last couple years. We've got to see his journey. We've got to see him build his brand. And it's kind of cool because it feels like, man, I already know you. You know, he's been so vulnerable on his platform. He's led us into his personal life. He's told us a lot about his story. And so I'm really excited to get to just meet you face to face, talk to you in person, have access to that brain, and just kind of get to know a lot more about you, man. So I really appreciate it. We have Josh Beckler from Canine Optima. How you doing, man?
Super with a capital duper.
It still never gets old. I think it always hits the mark. Well, thanks for joining us on the Dog Trainers Podcast. I know you have a podcast, and you've probably done a lot of podcasts, but for our listeners, one thing that we always like to do is really make sure that we're focused on education, inspiration, and collaboration, and just making sure that we have people on this podcast that are adding to the industry and people who are giving of their knowledge and giving of their experience and people who want to help. As Michael Ellis says, a rising tide raises all ships. And you, my friend, seem to be a person who is helping the tide rise. So thank you for joining us on this podcast. And yeah, man, you mind if we get started with kind of your Batman origin story a little bit?
It was a dark and stormy night.
Let's dive into where do you want to start with your story?
Everybody talks about their childhood. Everybody talks about loving dogs. That's definitely a par for the course for me. I connected with dogs early on. Lived in the rural parts of Tennessee, so there wasn't a whole lot going on. And so just envision a redneck 10-year-old pretending he's Jean-Claude Van Damme kicking trees and hacking away bushes with a machete with 3 Cocker Spaniels for 8 hours a day. That was basically my childhood.
Jean-Claude Van Damme is a icon. Icon. Bloodsport, the Kumite, right? Kickboxer, the best.
Yeah, Universal Soldier.
Name another time where someone convinced men that doing the splits was the manliest thing you could possibly do.
Legit.
Yeah.
Legit.
Up until I was 6, I could do
and
the
wearing
splits.
like little blue tighty whities and all that too. Yeah.
Yep. And then dancing like this.
Yeah.
Shaking those
French,
hips. Speaking French.
God damn it.
God damn it. No.
Yes.
Love Jean-Claude Van Damme. All right. Okay. So continue. Sorry.
Yeah. So that was my origin story. It's typical poor kid in the South, joined the military. Went into the infantry units. I was hanging out with some Air Force buddies in Camp Smith, and I saw a dog trainer doing some protection work with an officer and his pit bull at his pickup truck. She was doing some agitation work and teaching the dog to protect the truck. I struck up a conversation with her. Her name was Heather from Aloha Dog Training. Heather, I haven't seen you in 30 years. If you're listening, contact me. But I asked her if she'd teach me. She said the typical turn of phrase that every trainer says, clean my kennels and I'll think about it. So I drove out to Waimanalo, Hawaii and cleaned her kennels, and she taught me to train dogs, all compulsion, back then. So this is early 2000s. Got out. Thought I was going to be a dog trainer. Trained, did a lot of behavior work, aggression work. Again, just all, yank and crank stuff. And then I had 2 clients foot the bill. So I ran in because I missed rent to get another job. And that led me down a 17-year career in corporate investigations. So corporate investigations is, it's kind of best kept industry. So not a lot of people hear about it or talk about it, but it's pretty interesting.
I have like no clue what that is. So
Yeah,
you might, you might tell us.
It sounds so cool,
Yeah, it's like corporate investigations. Yeah.
Yes. Actually, this is part of my investigation, and both of you are under arrest for the IRS for tax evasion.
No, I paid him already. I did. I made sure
with a badge.
If you would have hit me up 5 years ago, I would have been like, yeah, that makes sense. That makes
a little bit about your Venmo account. They were all gifts, I swear. No,
they're all gifts. So corporate investigations. What the hell is that? It sounds cool, but what is it?
So I basically stopped loss, whether it was groups of thieves, small to organized, and then internal loss, employees that were stealing from anything from credit cards to cash to product. And I started small, was kind of a undercover agent, making apprehensions, like dipping people on pavement and putting them in handcuffs. And then I promoted to a manager where I focused more on the internal aspect and investigating the employees while I managed a group of those undercover agents, and then moved into district manager and regional manager, and then went up to the corporate headquarters where I got into something entirely different, which is ascending into the mothership and working with big data, scouring $100 billion worth of revenue for loss and finding employees that were stealing on much larger scales, whether it be hundreds of thousands of dollars or export schemes, all those different things. Fell in love with it, building queries, a little bit of coding, working with analyst teams, working with machine learning teams. And it was the coolest thing you could do in a cubicle, but it was still a cubicle. So,
yeah.
And everybody was miserable. It was a high pressure atmosphere. Each of my investigator members were in charge of catching 5 cases a week, and that clock reset every single week. And so it was definitely high pressure, but inevitably I just decided, no one was really happy with what they were doing. My boss was miserable. His boss's boss was miserable, and it just wasn't a good work environment. So I left, and that was around the time of the pandemic. And so I used the pandemic to get back into my first love, which is dog training. So same sort of, analytical lens. I researched the most successful dog trainer in the Bay Area who had the biggest scale, hit him up, asked him if I could be his trainer. He interviewed me, and I was his trainer, worked at one facility, was moved to another facility. Really cool time. He was also, he had like a breeding program, and a lot of his board and trains were starters for his protection program. So that was the first time I had access to like Dutch Shepherds and Belgian Malinois. And fell in love with the breed, fell in love with dog training again, got a chance to see scale, what does it look like with 2 facilities and 60 kennels in the facility, and saw the headaches, and come in early morning and it's just like dogs are bleeding and there's kennel cough and half the dogs are going home, and like dog bites, trainers getting bit, I got bit. And so I kind of got to see the future of what does it look like to have my own facility, and is that something I'm interested in, which was a really beneficial thing because I had money, I had a 6-figure salary. And so this career transition was really about like, what do I want to do? Not so much proving myself and accolades and income. And so that was a really pivotal moment for me. And inevitably I started my own company, Canine Optima. Around that time, TikTok was blowing up. So I was a part of that huge wave where, dog trainers are catching tons of followers. I was showcasing my inability to fix reactivity quite well,
okay.
Which just so happens is amazing for social media. If you can't control the dog and the dog is trying to bite you the whole session, you're in. You're going to catch a followership.
Yeah.
And my books filled up overnight. That perfect storm of living in an extremely densely populated area and having a large followership, right? I live in the San Francisco area. You got San Jose, Sacramento, you got the East Bay and San Francisco. And so there's millions upon millions of people. So when those videos blew up, my books filled up before I knew what the hell I was doing. And because I showed reactivity, every phone call and every email was reactivity. And it was a very sketchy time. I also in some of the things that I saw, decided that I wasn't going to do any leash corrections. And that was also pretty precarious to go, fra la la force free when I'm being inundated with reactivity. And so I had to really dig myself out of the learning curve, read all the books, seminars, podcasts, programs, and try to stay nimble with what I was seeing. And inevitably got so busy that I could no longer put up videos of my sessions because I'm working 8 dogs a day, 7 days a week. And so I just decided, why not just go live? I'm on TikTok. TikTok has a live feature. Just hit the button, and then all my sessions are recorded and I can just shoot out clips later. So it was more about like convenience and being able to continue to stay active on my social media while I was active with dogs. And so I started going live with all of my sessions. And so for the past 3.5 years, every single behavior case, every single client has been live on social media. And that's to the tune of like 5,000-6,000 dogs. So it's been a wild ride. I definitely don't even know if I still know what I'm doing or saying. I'm just hoping I get there one day. But yeah, man, that's it. That's pretty much the journey.
That's crazy, man. That's I mean, you've been living a full life, and you still are going to continue to live a full life. But it's so crazy when people take skills from different life experiences, right? Like you were in infantry, you practically like you were like, I have a special set of skills, to find fraud in the big corporations, right? And then you bring all these skills and you bring them into dog training. Like what are some of those things that you saw kind of cross over from, environment to environment to the dog training environment?
One was like finding the problem. When you're looking at big data, you're staring at some pivot tables you've created, you're looking at some queries, you can see outliers in the data and say that's a case. And probably every single time you think you have a case, you say in your head, that's a case, someone's stealing. There's no way that that's real. Someone had to steal. That has to be like a case. But as you peel back the layers and you look at the transactions and you pull the person's data and you look at all their history, you realize, no, there's actually a viable reason why this particular thing happened. And you go to proving them right versus proving them wrong. So the hallmark of a good investigator is being thorough, because inevitably, there's a litigious element to it. You could be sued for, wrongful termination and damages. And so you have to be 100% clear that this person did it. You also have to know exactly how much they've taken before you go to the next realm of the interview, or the next realm of the case that really boded well for dog training, which is interview and interrogations. So once you get your case, you've got to sit down and you've got to interrogate them and you've got to get them to tell you all the things that they've done, even the things that you've missed. And so to do that, the industry has been certified in various interrogation techniques. And most of us have accrued like advanced certifications in interview and interrogation. And that's its own art form as well. And you get really obsessed about that too. So you get your certifications and then you learn about the core methods, like the FBI profiling methods and hostage negotiations. And there's a lot of science involved too. So you learn about the autonomic nervous system. You learn about neurolinguistics programming. You learn about like micro expressions, and you learn how to read a person as you're talking to them to know where they're nervous so that you know where to circle back and go in a little bit harder on that and get them to tell you everything that they know. And so standing in front of a dog and seeing a lot of the body language and, stress cues and all this different stuff, it translates perfectly, like making sure you're not jumping the gun on what you're seeing and really taking the time to peel back the layers, not only with what you're seeing with the dog, but the intake and the circumstance before you actually set your heels to perform whatever approach that you're going to perform.
Right. 100%. And you know what's so cool is all the stuff that I've just been a nerd of that stuff, right? You had to live it and you do it for your career, but I've always been a nerd of CIA training and neurolinguistic programming. Yeah, my mom used to listen to Tony Robbins when I was a little kid. And so I used to hear like, oh, this neurolinguistic programming stuff happening in the background, like Chris Voss type stuff. You know what I mean? Like, always been a nerd because as much as I love training dogs, like I'm very curious about human behavior. I'm very curious about learning. Like, I hate the word manipulation, but in essence, that's kind of what it is. It's like, how can I read you and uncover, kind of like mentalism, right? I'm a member at the Magic Castle in LA. So if you ever want to come and like do magic in LA, come by. But like even with mentalisms, it's like little micro expressions. Like you're learning how to read sincerities and lies, and like you're learning all this shit, and to be able to have this anticipatory awareness of like, they can do one of these three things. If they do this, it means that. If it does this, it means that. You know what I mean? So I've always been excited about that stuff. And it's just really cool to meet someone who like had that skill set before they got pro with dogs, and most importantly, coaching people and helping people. Now, I remember in another conversation, you had talked about you had to coach a lot of people. Like, what kind of stuff did you have to coach people on?
So aside from investigations, I'm also in charge. When I was a district manager, I'd have like 10 stores. When I was a regional manager, I had like 250 stores, stemming across 5 states. And I would fly in and audit the stores to see how they're performing operationally, like they're performing their SOPs and their safety and their hazmat and their OSHA. And essentially, it's just all the really boring, dry stuff. And then I would have to stand in front of a team of managers and store managers who do not bonus off of this stuff. They bonus off the top line. And I would have to tell them what they're doing wrong. And then I would have to explain ways to fix it in a manner that got them super psyched and pumped about what I was talking about, and more or less motivate them to do things that aren't really in their best interest to do. And so that's kind of where I got a grasp on like public speaking and getting people psyched about what we're talking about, explaining things in a way that they understand it, that it's digestible. And even when I give them routines, making sure that it's easy, it's actionable, it's something they can comprehend and they can do today. So I did that for a really long time. And I would say above all else that I just mentioned, that was probably the biggest success for me coming into dog training, was being able to stand in front of people and make an impact, get them really jazzed about what we're talking about, make it digestible, and leave them feeling like they got it, they understand it, and they're excited to do it.
Yeah, great. That's amazing, man. You mentioned also in a previous conversation, you mentioned systems that you got really good at building systems. As dog trainers who work with other dog trainers, one thing that I see there is like a failure of understanding how to create systems and how to map things out, and A leads to B, which leads to C. Again, I think a lot of it is like predicting how things work, right? Talk to me a little bit about that. Like, do you see that in your coaching? I know you work with a lot of dog trainers. I know you work with a lot of clients. In that conversation, you mentioned you train systems. Tell me a little bit about when you say system, what do you mean by systems?
So essentially, I was sort of the investigator that was a top performer in the company. And so I had come up with all these different creative ways to catch people stealing. And so when I first got into the corporate structure, I was teaching them all the stuff I was doing. I was building PowerPoints on how I would do it so I could get all the investigators to do this. Once the boss realized that I had taken a lot of creative approaches and come up with new queries, he got me with the analytics team and had me in charge of building new reporting. He also put me in front of the machine learning team, which was really popular in 2016. Where I essentially would work with a group that fed a machine, and the machine would try to identify theft across the enterprise. I would get the results, confirm whether it was a case or not, and refeed it back into the machine. This wasn't a case, this was. And so it was all very much just patterns and outliers. And I've always had an ability for that. It's always been the thing that gets me excited, is figuring things out. And so stepping into dog training, very much a similar process. Like I went in and I gobbled up all the protocols, like Grisha Stewart, BAT 2.0, CAT protocols, desensitization protocols. And because I was early in my development, I fell into the same like Dunning-Kruger trap that everybody else did. Like as soon as I stood under threshold work and I could run 100 dogs through it, I'm on social media talking shit to Danny Wells saying every dog can be fixed under threshold work. Which I do not advise.
Yeah.
And then as with anyone who sticks with it and is really, present with what you're doing and whether it's working, I started to go, oh, wait a minute, there's like limitations to this. There are dogs that are not suited for this process and protocol. And that's when I matured and realized, like, back to your, Batman reference, like it's just all tools in your utility belt. And what works for one dog isn't going to work for another. And that's what really humbled me and got me to shut up and stop pretending like I know everything and just, continue to learn and continue to improve.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think there's two ways that I hear that said, right? I hear, like you have to kind of earn that humility in a way, right? Like, cause like there's a thing that we've heard, it's called the 2-year dog trainer syndrome, where like everyone who's been training dogs for 2 years acts like they know it all and they can do it. And they and then they go and talk shit on social media, right? It's the same pattern because, oh, I'm smart enough to make these patterns make sense in my head. Of course, I'm capable enough. I can run any dog through these patterns and I'll be able to get success. So it gives you this false sense of confidence. And then you hear people say this cliche in dog training where it's like, oh, every dog's different. Every dog's this, every dog's that. And there are some people who say that because they actually don't know. And then there are people who've like some of our favorite dog trainers, right? Like Michael Ellis, Larry Crone, Ivan, they've all said the same thing. It depends. I don't know. I don't know. It depends. Tell me more. Like, like they have such a wealth of fucking like failures and successes and like changing one variable. Like they've experimented so much that their framework of information legitimately is like, yeah, we kind of train dogs mostly different. Yeah. Like, you know what I mean? So I guess that was more, I don't know, that's just more of something I noticed, but like anything you want to comment on that? Like, did you feel like you earned that humility a little bit?
It was given to me. So
Yeah.
when I talk shit to Danny Wells, so shout out to Danny Wells, he'll love this. I was still in the influencer route. Like I was wearing wigs, I was making fun of trainers. I was having a lot of success with my personality on TikTok. And so I just ran with it and continued to be funny, be silly, be provocative, all the stuff that a lot of people do when they hit the scene. And I was talking shit about everybody like Jonas and Dog Sense. Then I poked the bear Danny Wells and he fucking, can I cuss on here?
Yeah.
Danny Wells proceeds to backhand me in front of the entire industry. He's like, I can ruin you in one Google. And so somewhere along the way, when I mentioned that I had learned to train dogs way back when, Danny construed that as I've been saying I've been training dogs for 30 years, which I never said. So Danny goes on a live and goes on my website. This guy doesn't know what he's doing. His pricing is inflated. He's a fraud. And he hasn't worked truly aggressive dogs. He doesn't know his head from his ass. And it changed me. Like I was correctly in the Dunning-Kruger effect, and where you couldn't tell me I didn't know what I was doing, him saying, you don't know what you're talking about. I can tell in your handling you don't got it yet, and you haven't worked truly aggressive dogs. He was right. He was correct, but I couldn't hear it. And what he did was he pissed me off. And so that was about the time that I shut up. That was about the time that I went, you know what? I'm going to show you. And I stopped with the wigs. I stopped with the skits. I opened up my books and I worked 8 dogs a day for 7 days a week. And what he did was he pissed me off to the extent that I started prioritizing being a better dog trainer over a content creator. And it was probably one of the, it's his last thing that he said in the video is, I told you I would ruin you, but he actually created me. And that
Wow.
one moment. Yeah.
Wow. That's huge.
Yeah.
That is huge, man. That is, I think what that's a true testament is like at the end of the day, if you're truly in it for dogs and you're truly in it for the craft, of dog training. That will always happen, right? Like people will always be like, I'm the shit and I'm not the shit, or like, fuck you. And they want to talk shit and create divides. But if you truly care about the craft, at some point you will shut the fuck up and listen. And that's just a true testament, like how much you love what you do, man. Because that takes a lot of, I think it would take a lot of strength, right? Like some people would get humiliated like that and then fucking leave. What was it that made you, with conviction, just double down, like, no, I'm going to fucking do this? Like what?
Well, at that stage, he was a bigger account than I was. And when he spoke, he has mostly dog trainer followership, right? He's revered in the industry, especially in the UK. And so when he said I was a fraud in front of the entire industry, it just lit a fire in me to prove him wrong. And because I doubled down and I shut up and I just went live in my sessions and I started working dogs, I started to look more so at the dog as far as what I'm going to do and fixing the dog, rather than look at the dog and go, what stuff am I going to clip for my social media session? Right. And the other end of that coin, and what made me, was starting to like meet my capacity with dogs and not know exactly what to do. And it's starting to look sloppy and I'm starting to fail dogs. What I know isn't working. And so that caused me to, not only like stay humble, but reach out and start networking and gain some friends and get back to the grind with my educations. Around the time that I joined Joe Rosie's Canine Science program, which is a pretty intensive program for 3 years. And it really kept my nose to the grindstone on ensuring that I know what I'm doing, because quite literally the dogs in front of me require that of me, right? People know me of social media. They think they're going to come in and see the world's best dog trainer because of a TikTok personality. And, it started to get serious when you realize, like, a lot of these dogs, you're their last stop, right? So it was a very humbling experience for me. And, in the last 5 years, I have learned so much that it's so exciting to think about what another 5 years looks like. That's what really gets me excited. Just when you think back to how many times you've been wrong, how many times you thought you knew it and it turns out that wasn't it. I just get really jazzed thinking about, like, in the next 5 years where I'm going to be.
Yeah, dude, that's what are some of those? Like, do you have some goals? Like, what are some things you got going on?
Well,
you hope to be doing?
2 years ago, I started a community called The Infinite Approach. 2.5, my daughter's almost, 3 years ago. And what I would do is I would take the interesting cases, and I would present them as case studies, post the case studies, and then do a webinar. And I was doing like 1 webinar every week for the community. And it kind of kept me in this like furry incubator where I'm coming to my community, not as a, hey guys, look how awesome I am, but truly as a, hey, this is the dog I saw. This is what I was thinking here. And because I'm watching what I did, I'm even really candid with, hey, I missed that. I shouldn't have said that. This is something I'm going to do next time. It was just completely like transparent with my thought process. And I kept doing that. I kept fleshing out like, these are the cases I saw. This is what we're doing, yada, yada, yada. And because every week I was doing lookbacks on my extreme cases and my interesting cases, I think it kept me a little bit more invested in what am I truly seeing and where am I going with things. And I did that for, God, man, that on the app right now, the Canine Optima app, there's more than 300 case studies and over 100 webinars easy in the last 3 years. And it's the biggest consolidation of cases that you could possibly find. And, the further you go back, the worse I get probably. But, it's not everything's buttoned up and like, look how awesome I am. It's simply like, this is what I'm doing. This is what I'm thinking. And you can kind of see how I evolve, and the stuff that's really interesting to me way back when I started to think about like sensory profiles and like, hey, different dogs have different sensory profiles, and I would get really excited about this and really excited about that. And you could just see, that you're more or less, moving through all these areas of interest and these areas of competencies. But it really is coming down to the dogs that are pushing you there, right? The different problems that you're experiencing are what's motivating you to come up with new skill sets, new perspectives, and new approaches based on what you're dealing with in the moment. So It's been a completely wild ride.
That's awesome, man. It's cool to hear about the value of transparent case studies, because another thing that Michael Ellis, talks to us about, which, as I'm sure you can tell, we respect this guy to no end, right? Is how dog training in the world of social media has become too highlighty, and that people need to start posting more genuine, complete sessions with all the mess ups and everything included, just so that everybody else watching, trainers, owners, can see that the process isn't glamorous all the time, and it's not always straightforward, and it's not always easy, because that, I think, is part of what helps avoid people assuming you can become a master dog trainer in 2 years' time.
Yep. Yep. It's pretty crazy to do it live. Like, it was a dumb idea to begin with. And I'm surprised that I did not get canceled with as many dogs as I was working and not knowing what I was doing. I probably made a mockery of myself early on, for sure. But you also have this voice in the back of your head too, because people are watching. I get upwards of 400 people watching me on a Saturday. Right. And in the course of, the weekend, after everybody rotates through, it's like 30,000 people in a weekend. And in the beginning, it was pretty nerve-wracking because you're like, everybody's watching. I have no idea what I'm going to do here. Or the dog redirects on me and I wasn't anticipating it, like all my flaws, all my mistakes. But it also pushed me to think again, and because everybody's watching, make sure before I open my mouth that I've taken all the facts in. Make sure before I go to do something and work that dog that I've got some semblance of an idea of how I'm going to start things. And it kind of helped me. It kept me honest in the process as well. But Michael Ellis is right. Unfortunately, simple sells. And unfortunately, having the gift of gab and being able to present in a way that's exciting for people, if you just have a big personality and strong opinions, the sky is the limit in social media dog training, and
Yeah, totally. And I think you're right about that. And I think that people are finding the workaround, and the app sounds like one of those workarounds. Like, now a lot of dog trainers are building that. Like, Michael has his own platform. Jacob from Yorkshire Canine has his own platform. You have yours. So people are and Joe Rosie, obviously, people are figuring out how to have more streamlined online content that's designed to be educational, not just social media shock factor interesting type thing, right? So it's really cool to watch that take place.
Yeah. It's also watching your popularity or your growth start to dwindle because you're better at what you do is a thing that kind of drives you up the wall too. Knowing all the things that made me successful in the beginning with dogs leaping and lunging at me and taking cracks at me, and knowing that I stay ahead of the dog now and, I'm 5 steps ahead and I'm working it accordingly. And even though the dog is a crazy dog that bit a kid and did all these terrible things, killed another dog, you wouldn't know it in session in the way that I'm working the animal. And so that also, it's tempting to, continue with what works on social media and discontinue with what is truly going to work for the animal and the owner that needs you, right? Those are mutually exclusive.
That's a very honest thing to say, and I appreciate you saying that very much, because I completely understand what you're saying right there. And I wanted to bring this up when you were talking a little while ago about Jamie, that you have this through
Jamie
line
or
I've heard-
Danny?
Danny, I'm sorry, not Jamie.
Yeah.
Danny Wells, excuse me. No, not Danny. Was Danny Wells the guy who punked you for some reason? I thought I heard Jamie Penrith.
Yeah.
That makes more sense. Yeah. I made the mistake. I don't know if you were watching at the time that he was doing his presentation, but I think one time I called Jamie Danny, and Danny corrected me pretty quick, and I was like, "Oh, sorry, dude. Is the other British guy? My bad." But to get back to the question, then something that I heard throughout all of this, the through line throughout all of it, is you've built in these systems in yourself. And I don't know if it was the Marines or what you did prior to dog training, the corporate investigations, or both, that seem to have these two underlying factors. That number one is, when things frustrate you or intimidate you or whatever, you don't stop like a lot of people do. You just find solutions, and it's not always easy, and it's not always fun, and it's not always pretty, but there is going to be a solution somewhere, right? And that's part of it. But the other part of it is, you think of things in terms of systems, and then you take things that aren't currently systems and you systemize them and make them into systems, right? And I bring up Danny to say that, there's this kind of true north, right? Like should I make content that's really digestible content, or should I get better as a dog trainer and stick to the dog training? Because as you say, they become this fork and they're not quite together the way that we thought that they were. And it's fascinating how many people in the dog training space and any space don't seem to stick to what they say the true north is, right? Like all the words that come out of your mouth are like, I want to get better for dogs, not your mouth, but I want to get better for dogs and stuff like that. But all the stuff that you do doesn't seem to achieve that goal, right? So I guess I would just love to hear a little bit about what helps you formulate that true north and what helps you stick to it and remember it and all that good stuff.
I think early I was figuring out how to approach things, how do I assess things, and, meeting all these different dogs in different circumstances and factoring all that stuff in. I built this like qualitative database, and I became obsessed with like working more dogs. It was even a time when for about 2 years, I gave free sessions to a Malinois and Dutch Shepherd rescue called Mad Rescue. Every single dog they threw at me, I'd do it for free because I wanted access to those animals, right? I didn't do sport, and that was about the only way I was going to get like super consistent access to those animals because I wanted to understand them a little bit better. And fast forward to like 6,000 dogs. Now, when I see a new dog, it's like really exciting. When I see a dog do something different, when your brain goes, I haven't seen that before, you stop talking and you're starting to ask more questions and you're just kind of watching the animal and trying to figure out like, what is that? Like, that's the stuff that gets me most excited now is seeing new stuff, dogs presenting differently, different circumstances, right? Like I got a rescue that's going to be giving me a dog that was stabbed. Like it was a full like post, like this dog was stabbed, please help. And it was a bull breed, just bunch of stab wounds down the spine and the flank. A good rescue friend of mine. And I called her up. I'm like, hey, are you taking that dog? She's like, yeah. I go, that dog might've been stabbed because it was on something.
Right.
Like another dog to
Right.
get it off of a kid or a dog because it just got dumped in the parking lot of a shelter. She's like, I didn't think about that. And then fast forward, she's like, hey, will you take that dog? And we'll get him in medical, we'll rehab him, but can you take him so that we can pop the hood and figure out if it was something like that? And I'm like, hell yeah. Like I've never done that before. I would love to do that. Like let's nurse the dog and let's figure out whether or not it was something, some sort of biases there. And stuff like that, I just get really stoked on. Like I'm obsessed with learning more, and that sounds like very like altruistic or fra-la-la, but that's built off the back of just not knowing what I'm talking about and holding these truths to be, self-evident, if you will, and realizing that stuff was wrong and I was wrong. And, it's more or less my failures that have led to the place where I just get so excited about learning more and improving,
Like I can respect that. You have a scientific mind, right? Like, let me find out if what I know is what I know, right?
My daughter's autism explains a lot about me. Yeah, I have been different for a long time. My boss in the corporate infrastructure was like, yeah, I've never seen a creative mind like yours. But really, it's come down to like identifying patterns and outliers. And really, like that, it comes down to that for the dog too, right? Like it's a shared experience. Dogs learn and respond, and, everything is off of patterns and outliers. And so it's been really cool to jump in a career where, I can stay cerebral and continue to learn and get paid doing it. I wake up every day, I get up at 8 a.m. and I roll out into my backyard and there's an aggressive dog waiting to meet me and I haven't even metabolized my coffee yet. It's like the best thing in the world to me.
Yeah, that's awesome, dude. It is cool to kind of ponder like what happened. That was the first thing I thought when you said that this dog was stabbed multiple times. I'm like, I imagine it's really hard to stab a dog that does not want to be stabbed. Like at least more than once, right? So I'm like, if it's taken a bunch of tags, maybe it was something. That is an interesting case for sure.
Yeah. I mean, I think the best of the best in our industry are people that are obsessed with the practitioner, that
Right.
are big time problem solvers and love the problem solving aspect. When you listen to Ivan speak and you listen to Michael Ellis or Jerry Bradshaw, when I hear them, I hear experience. Like you can just hear it in the way that they communicate. It's not, lip service. It's not buzzwords. You can just hear thousands of dogs. And it's such an incredible thing to think that a person like Ivan has been obsessing over dog behavior for the better part of 40 years.
Yeah.
Like, forgotten more about dogs than maybe most of us are ever going to learn. Like that's super inspirational.
Yeah, totally. It's cool actually, because it's cool to see this like dog training renaissance over the last few years, where people of all different types of career fields are finding themselves dog training, right? And you're bringing all those skills with you. And it's really interesting because Brent and I have been on this kick for the last few years or so, where these dog creatives, like Ivan and the people who just wake up and want to see something new every single day. There's a level of deep dive into dog knowledge with certain people, at least, that's just massive. But the level of systemizing this information so that everybody else can learn it too is way behind. So it's super cool to hear that your background. I was writing down some of the things that you said in the beginning, problem solving, teaching, coaching, training, and curriculum building. I'm really excited to see how that helps the other thing catch up to itself.
Yeah. I wrote a book, year and a half, 2 years in the making, called The Infinite Approach, Modern Dog Training and Polyvagal Insights. It draws from some disciplines around polyvagal theory and how to look at behavior with dogs. And essentially it's everything that I've done in 5 years, the sciences that I've taken, like big picture sciences, ethology, physiology, neurobiology, polyvagal. It talks about the different styles of reactivity and aggression that I've identified, how to spot it, and then how to game plan it. And that was a really difficult thing to create roadmaps for every single style of reactivity and aggression. There's probably close to 35 different styles. And I closed the book out with how to build a protocol. And one of my biggest inspirations in writing the book was this horse before this carriage before the horse that seems to happen in dog training, where somebody takes something that's cool, that works, and then they market it and they run with it and they sell it like it's everything. And that's happened so many times that it's like we have all these different solves, but no one really focuses on the why. There's no standardized way of assessing a dog to determine whether or not these protocols are going to be the most efficient path. And so that was more or less the inspiration on the book, is to focus on assessment. Like, how do you assess a dog? And then from there, like, what are some roadmaps that you can do? What are some approaches that you can do? And then from there, if that doesn't work, here's the troubleshoot, here's the pivot. So pretty excited about it coming out.
Yeah, that's awesome. And do you know roughly when it's going to come out?
It's at Formatter right now. And the guy's in India. And so I talk to him every day at midnight. I just asked him for the time frame that he's going to take. So once it's done with formatting, then it goes to, I'm going to send it out for excerpts to a couple dog trainers that have agreed to do excerpts for me. And then it goes to proofreading and it's out. But it's a pretty massive book. It's 30 chapters. It's like 130 words, like 500 pages. Like, it's massive. So it is like the size of like an academic book. And I took it to multiple developmental editors to make sure that it's something value added. It's not just I wrote a book, guys, here it is. And in this tiny little thing, I wanted to make sure that it would be a value added for the industry. So I sent it to a developmental editor. She came back. She's like, hey, I like this. Format your chapters a little better. Did all that stuff. The book doubled in size. And then I sent it to a really good development editor, like a PhD who does more science books. And she was like, I like this practice path that you did that's super detailed for 6 weeks. I need you to do that for every single reactivity and every single aggression. And I was like, motherfucker. So I spent 7 months like rewriting the book. And now it's at a place where I don't know if it's good or not, but we'll find out as soon as it's published. But I'm pretty excited to be done with it. And much like like you've heard in this conversation, it's not like I know everything, this is everything you need. It's truly like hey, as a dog trainer, these are the sciences that are really important to you. Like you got to know what's going on in the brain and the body. And FYI, genetics matter. Like you should really be looking into ethology. And then of these types of aggression and reactivity, here's my practice path and the things that I've done. And my favorite thing is to close the book with, and here's exactly how you build it. So you look at your goal setting, you find your milestones, and here's how you build it out. And then here's how you find your pivots if it's not working. Here's what you do if it's falling flat. And so hopefully dog trainers can take something like that and at least have a starting point for how do I assess behavior? Like what, and most importantly, this book should say to the entire industry that it is extremely important that you do assess behavior, that it's not I don't need to see it to fix it mantra that you've heard repeated so many times in the industry. Like we have to know the acute problem in order to develop an efficient and cute solve, like end of story.
Right.
Absolutely.
Now go ahead.
Oh, sorry. It's an ambitious undertaking. I'm really looking forward to reading it. I think it's going to come out next year, I'm hoping, or something like that. That'll be exciting, dude.
Definitely next year. We're rounding third. As soon as it's back from formatting, it's going to go to a proofreader, and then I'll send it out to some people for excerpts. We'll publish it. And then what's cool about it is that the app, the Canon Optima app, it still lives and breathes. So I actually, in each chapter, I give a case study, and it's a real case study. I've changed the names to protect the innocent to underscore this style of reactivity. And so what's cool is, as you're reading this book, whether you're a dog trainer or a dog owner, you can actually download the app and you can see these case studies and you can see the demonstration and see the body language and actually bring it to life, if you will.
That's super cool.
Yeah.
Question for you. So you said there was like 35 different notated aggressions in that book. That's crazy. Now I know we can't go over all 35, but do those 35 fit in like categories? Like could you categorize them in some way? Could you share that a little bit with the audience?
I did, yeah. So in the course of assessing dogs, I've determined like drivers, I've determined, contexts that cause behavioral issues, and I have like, not that I'm worthy of naming something or titling something, but I have come up with different styles of reactivity that I see or aggression that I see, like, reciprocal style reactivity, which I think you heard me talking about on the canine conference case study that I did, where you have dogs that maybe they're understimulated, maybe they're a working breed that just need more of an outlet. And so they start performing reactivity as a means of thrill seeking. Like, there's no inherent real driver. There's no inherent real biases. They're just looking to throttle because they don't get to throttle, and there's no perceivable outlet versus like a sniff social style reactivity where you have, everybody's heard of hypersocial, where a dog is like, oh my God, that's a dog. I want to say hi to the dog. I've found in my assessments that you have a sister version of that, which is sniff social, where they actually aren't excited to play with a dog. They're not stimulated by the concept of interacting with a dog. They have such a driver for olfactory sense that they actually want to identify the dog's pheromones. So want to get over there, not to play with a dog, but to identify the pheromones. And after that, that's that. And then it gets even nuttier where you have conflict-seeking dogs that are sniff social, or dogs in my process have wanted to identify pheromones, but if the dog turns to smell them and get their handshake, they'll turn around and they'll attack them immediately, right? Yeah. So all of these things were built off of dogs that taught me that these are things that exist. And it's pretty cool. I don't know. I'm hoping that it's well received. It's a really nerve-wracking thing to produce something like this for the industry because I'm pretty sure I'll be ripped apart. I'm pretty sure, people will have a lot to say about it. This is definitely a world where, they will shred anything that you do, But if any of the newer trainers or any dog owners out there go, that's my dog, this is what's going on, or wow, that was really helpful, like I'll take it. I'll take it all day.
Yeah,
that's great. When you were saying the sniff social stuff, it was making me think of, human references of like, there are some people who just like to keep shit surface level and like social. And then there are people that like, tell me your traumas. Like, right. Like, I want to know you on the inside. Like, tell me everything. That's what that sniff social reminded me of. Like, I just want your pheromones. Like, I'm just going to sniff your butt right now. I want to know what you ate.
Yeah.
It's cool, man. It's cool because I, I don't know, the way I look at something like that is it's a genuine, transparent case study. I get it. Maybe some stuff in there is wrong. Maybe some stuff in there is right. Like we all understand that no dog trainer is ever going to be perfect, right? Even if you're Ivan or Michael or whatever. But given what it is, as in not, like you said, not this self-aggrandizing, like, here's how amazing I am, but just straight up, here's what happened. And if you want to actually watch it, just download my app. I think that it serves as a really nice filter, personally, where people who, even if they disagree with it or whatever, they can at least be grateful for the fact that someone did it. Someone finally did it. Took how long now? And people who just see absolutely no value in even so much as the attempt of it, then fine, maybe we're just not friends and it's all good. Like, so it kind of creates a nice little exit on the freeway of like, all right, cool. You either I see the value in me trying or you don't. And either way, see ya. Thank you.
I would add like more like, so it takes a lot of effort, it takes a lot of courage to put a book together. Number one. So there's already respect there, right? Number two, it starts a conversation, right? So even if people agree with it or people disagree with it, the fact that someone's able to, like, especially someone who's intelligent, if you're able to take information that you're interpreting it for the people to say, hey, this is how I see it. Like it's an offering. Like you're saying, hey, this is an offering. It could be right, it could be wrong, but let's start a conversation on it because it's that Tupac quote where like, I may not change the world, but I might spark the mind of the person who does, kind of thing. Having the courage to write that book in and of itself is already a W, man. Like it's already a win. And the fact that it's completed, and there's always going to be naysayers. There's always going to be, but the people who are just as curious about this industry as you are going to read it and go, oh, he's onto something. Okay, I don't hate it, maybe I love it, you know what I mean? So I think it's in and of itself just completing something this monstrosity of a book. It's great. It's amazing, man.
It was kind of a trip because it also brought me in on how quickly I changed my mind or how quickly I realized that that's not it. Like, cause I was in the process of writing the book and it would go away for developmental edit and it would come back 12 weeks later and I'm like working dogs and I'm fleshing stuff out and I'm like, that's not right. And I'm like, nope, that's not a thing. Like I probably need to not do that. And I ended up rewriting and writing and rewriting because I'm still growing as a dog trainer. And so that's where the real like humility came in, where I'm at some point I basically just said, now I'm done. I can't continue to rewrite this and continue to like add on to it because I'm consciously aware of what I'm learning every single weekend working dogs. And the process in writing a book is not what you think. Like I thought it would be this grandiose, like everything is meticulous and this is exactly what I would say. And when I sent that first manuscript to a developmental edit and they like ripped it apart and they're like, hey, how about you format chapters? Pretty hard for me to determine when I'm going from a learner's mindset to a practice path. So like, oh, and by the way, an introduction much, and you're like, oh,
yeah.
So you rewrite it and then you're like, all right, it's not ready for copy edit yet. And so I sent it to a new development editor and then she's like, okay, I like these three things, make these three things happen in every single chapter and then remove this and kill this. And even stripped out a lot of my anecdotal stuff and my humor stuff and said, not necessary, like in terms of readability. So by the time you get to the end of it, you're like, it's not what I started with. I have no idea if it's going to be good. I reach out to Kim Brophy and I'm like, is this what it feels like? Because she wrote Meet Your Dog, which is a fantastic book. And she's like, it's exactly what it feels like. By the time the editors get a hold of it, you don't know if it's good anymore because it's so incredibly different. And so you just have to trust the process and then hope it lands when it gets published. And that's basically the hellish waiting room that I'm in right now.
And you know what, dude? It's cool because, you had mentioned earlier something about like when you watch your own videos, you kind of see things and you can adjust things. And I feel like it's probably the same for a book. Like you sent it to the edit and it comes back and it's the same information, but presented differently, right? Because that's what they do. And then only when you get a chance to look at it, that's when you can conceptualize like, oh, you know what? It sounded good in my mind, but once I put it on paper, then I realize there's something different there. And I think that makes total sense because in a smaller scale, the amount of dog trainers that don't just write out their own programs, not to mention a book, but just put their programs on paper. That kind of thing is something that we talk about all the time. We're doing the Art of Teaching with Tyler Muto. He actually told us the first time we met him that when he did his courses for Learberg way, way, way back, and he was on a very strict shooting schedule because he had to like fly in, fly out, he has a wife, has kids, that every shot had to like get it right quickly, right? First or second take. And so everything was kind of pre-scripted. I'm going to shoot it like this. The camera's going to look like this. And he was telling us that in the process of scripting everything, and only in the process of scripting everything, because he had already been training dogs for however long, that he realized, why this order doesn't make sense. Once he looks at the shot order, like it should actually go 1, 3, 2, not 1, 2, 3. Well, I need to change how I train, right? And so I really think it's cool to hear that in this process, there's, I don't want to say this insecurity, but this realization like, oh, you know what? I should change things around. I think it's really fascinating. I guess I would love to hear your thoughts on, in a simpler sense, just writing a regular day-to-day curriculum or an actionable step for an owner. How, are there any skills, anything valuable that you could give to newer trainers? Like, here's what helped me script things out for myself.
Man, well, scripting, I think for me, the assessment really dictates how I'm going to approach any given issue. Right. So like more assessment, more observation, and even more tempered and safe and methodical exposure to triggers so that you can figure out what the drivers are and how the dog has an ability to regulate, if the dog has an ability, like how to best communicate to the animal, right? Like what's their biggest motivators? Are you going to use stimulation? Are you going to use, what sensories are you going to use based on their primary sensory modality? What's most distinctive for them? Like that stuff is really what helps you go, cool, here's the first thing I'm going to do. Here's the second thing I'm going to do. But all too often, because people are so stuck in this, like, I just need to fix it, how to, and then you have these platforms that basically broad brush everything and cookie cut everything and celebrate everything like it's just that easy. We've lost the nuance. We've lost the ability to think critically. And when you're looking for the answer and you want the quick and easiest answer, like your back is turned to the problem. And you're not gifting the owners with the ability to not only see their dog and understand what's going on with them, but then be able to fix the next issue that arises that will inherently arise with their animal 3 years down the road, a completely separate issue, right? And so I really think that the best starting point for building any sort of curriculum or organizing your thoughts on how you're going to fix things is to really understand the totality of your dog, like down to like what makes them tick and inherently what makes them tick, tick, boom, right? And until we do that, like we're just throwing noodles at the refrigerator and hoping this sticks.
Yeah, totally. That's exciting, man. So what else? So we have the book, The Infinite Approach, coming out sometime next year. What are some other things that are coming up in the next 5 years, things that you're looking forward to in your career?
Oh, man. Well, 5 kids.
5 kids?
5
You
kids.
have or you want 5 kids?
I have 5 kids.
Oh,
Yeah.
nice. Okay.
5 whole human beings.
Dude, I'm excited. I'm with you. I'm with you. I did that thing with my wife where she's like, how many kids do you want? I said 3. And then every time she asked me, it becomes 4 and 5. And
You're a glutton for punishment.
yeah. I'm more just OG Mexican, I want like 19 kids.
OG Mexican, right? You claim to be a little redneck. Is that what
Yeah.
it is, Josh? Yeah.
Yeah.
Same
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah, same thing.
Same
Honestly, this, I don't know. The coming out from under this book of like a year and a half, almost 2 years of obsessing over it and throwing every red cent that we have at it, all of our savings at it. It really feels good to focus on something else. The community is really strong. I still continue with, I'm working tons of dogs. I'm still doing case studies. I'm still doing webinars twice a month now, every Tuesday. And then I just opened up my in-home board and train process to my community. So showing, because I do in-home board and trains where I'll bring in reactive aggressive dogs. They live with me. I work them for a month, get them assimilated into my pack, liking my dogs, fra la la. And I've never really been so transparent about it because I'm a dad and a husband while I'm working these dogs. There's no time for like an iPhone out when I'm working a dog at my feet at my dining room table that wants to, bite my Belgian Malinois. So now I'm focusing on being a little bit more transparent about the in-home process and how I'm working these dogs and getting them to a place where they can go back home and be so copacetic, which is kind of exciting because it's new. I'm going to start up the podcast again. That was on ice for a minute. So I'd like to get back to talking to industry experts and picking their brain about what they do and what they know. And so that was a love of mine that I've missed terribly. So I'm excited to get back into that. But other than that, it's just the 5 kids.
Dude,
That's a lot of work, man.
Speaking of the 5 kids, yeah, congrats, by the way. I think that's
Thanks,
awesome.
yeah.
I love big
Yeah.
families.
Yeah.
Speaking of the 5 kids, are there maybe some really cool lessons or just really interesting things you've learned as a dad as it pertains to dog training?
We could be a whole different podcast. We could hit the pause, grab lunch, and come back for another hour. Like that, especially having an autistic daughter. So our daughter was diagnosed with autism at 18 months. I recognized it, pretty quickly and reached out to a client that had specialized in autism. She's got an autistic kid. She's got a PhD. Told her what I was seeing, and she's like, "Get her into the regional center immediately." Yeah, it sounds right. And that journey has taught me so much about behavior, and surprisingly, the overlap is astounding. Like frustration, stimulation, how to communicate, how to regulate, right? Reps, modeling, labeling. It has been probably some of the biggest education that I've gotten in behavior has been working with my daughter and thinking about new things, and then seeing that in session and seeing what the overlap is, and really trying to, because I've been going crazy on the research and learning about different, approaches and different concepts and all that different stuff, so I can be a good dad and help her learn to speak and, tolerate the world and all that stuff. And it's been crazy. It's most difficult thing I've ever done. Way more complex than some of the stuff I've done in session with dogs, but supremely connected. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome, dude. That's awesome. It's cool, and it's cool because you can hear the love when you talk about these things. I mean, obviously you love your daughter, but also just the love that you have, regarding the kids or not, of learning these types of things. So I think your daughter is blessed to have you as her father.
Yeah,
That worked out beautifully. You know what I mean?
I put her in the book. I got a bunch of different, highlights on how do I think about structure? How does structure work for, communicating to an animal, teaching an animal? And I fast forward to how a shopping cart and a car seat was the first time that I got my daughter to communicate to me and speak to me. Concepts like structure, where she's confined, she can't go anywhere because she's in a shopping cart, or she's confined, she can't go anywhere, she's in a car seat, gave her the opportunity to finally just center in on me and reciprocate some of the language that we've been working on for the better part of 8 months. And then you're standing in front of a dog and you're like, man, box work and all these various things that we do for structure and getting a dog to look at us to get precise. You just start connecting all the dots, and it's been awesome, continuing to ask all these different questions, and being paid to do it is even more incredible. The fact that I can pay my mortgage and feed my kids and just continue to learn about animals and behavior is fucking dream come true.
That's exciting, dude. That's exciting. So 5 kids. What are their ages roughly? I'm just curious.
So 2, 11, 14, 16, and 18.
Oh, so they span a good. Okay.
4 teenage boys, which I highly.
4 teenage boys.
Yeah, there
sorry,
was
bro.
lunar eclipse. They all turned into teenagers at the same time too. By the way,
Yeah.
they total
Wow.
bait and switch. If anyone tells you that they love kids, you're not factoring in teenagers. That's a different species.
Yeah.
Right. Dude,
Yeah, those
That's
are
funny.
adults you can't hit.
Little
Yeah.
narcissistic roommates that eat you out of house and home. But I love kids, and I'm the stepdad to all 4 kids, and I love them to death. And they've been a blessing to me to learn them, and they're all sprightly, and they have such great personalities and all their various interests, and they're playing. And then one of them turned into a teenager, and it was their cycles just synced, and they all went teenage at the same time. And all of a sudden, overnight, it's iPhones, girls, and video games. Don't talk to me. And you're like, what the hell happened?
Yeah, that's funny, dude. I have a younger sister who's younger enough that I'm like her older brother, but the relationship's kind of more like an uncle type thing, right? And it was the same. I'd go and visit my family in LA, and she'd be all excited. Junior, I'm a junior, so Junior, she'd come and hug me and everything. And then one day I show up and she's just like, "Hi," and I'm like, "Oh, she's a teenager."
Yeah.
And then from then on, it was same thing: makeup and cell phone and all that stuff.
And you can't be cool, no matter how cool you think you are.
Oh, dude,
cool.
no.
They're all obsessed with TikTok. I'm TikTok famous, and they could give a shit.
Yeah.
There's no winning.
Oh, dude, at all. Yeah, and I'm like married now. We're having kids. It's all the uncool stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But it's pretty cool though. Like it's being a parent and having a business and all those different things, like being transparent on social media has always been really cool to me too. Like you guys kind of get to see, everyone saw the birth of my daughter. I announced my daughter's autism diagnosis. Like, you guys have been a part of, the Internet Collective has been a part of our family. They know my wife. Most people like my wife more than they like me. And, it's just wild, dude. It's really exciting, and it's actually been really exciting to be on the podcast too. I can't thank you enough for inviting me. This has been really cool.
It's been a genuine play. It's you have a wonderful life. That's super exciting, dude. That's really cool. How cool.
So let's wrap this episode up. What is one? Should we go hope, desire, dream? Pretty much. I guess what's one piece of advice for someone listening to this who's got to the end of this episode, who's like, I'm a dog trainer, or maybe I'm thinking about jumping into dog training. This guy's story is really inspiring. What is one piece of advice that you'd want to give someone who's made it to the end of this episode?
Man, that's a good one. Let's see. Really safeguard the best thing in dog training. Like recognize it as the best thing in dog training and keep it close to your chest, which is like, we at core connect with an animal. We attune to an animal, right? And that connection, whether it's a moment in session, could be, sport, it could be an obedience session, you could be working something wild in terms of behavior modification. Like that connection is really why you're here, right? If you're inspired by connecting with an animal and getting to know them and figuring them out, the sky's the limit on what you're going to do. If that is the thing that gets you really excited, that, sort of problem solving aspect and that connection with dogs, like you will be the next Michael Ellis. You keep at it. You keep that the number one priority, and you stay hungry with understanding more and doing more. Like nothing can stop you in being the next legend in the industry that everybody talks about, the name that everybody tips in a podcast interview. Like it's inevitable.
Love that. Yeah, and I think that's just that's great advice for anyone who's seeking mastery in something that they love. That's awesome, man.
And don't fuck with Danny Wells.
Yeah. That's great, man. Well, I really appreciate you, Josh. Everyone who's listening, this is our interview with Josh Beckler from Canine Optima. Thank you again for spending the last hour with us, man. We really had a great time getting to know you and getting to know your journey. My name is Brent Labrada, and that guy is Mariano Alvarez. Thank you again to our guest, Josh, and we will see you guys on the next episode of the Dog Trainers Podcast. Peace.
See you guys.
Thank you for listening to the Dog Trainers Podcast, a podcast created by dog trainers, for dog trainers, or anyone who's ever fallen in love with man's best friend.
We really hope that you enjoyed this episode and can't wait to be back with you guys. Be sure to follow us at Dog Trainers Podcast on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. And don't forget to punch the hell out of that subscribe button and leave us a review.
Remember, guys, this is your podcast. You're the best listeners in the world, and we'll see you next time.